This is chapter number 2, sectors of the Indian economy. Whether it's an Indian economy or any other economy, we need to divide or we need to understand the sectors, different classification of the economy to understand what constitute an economy. What are we going to see is the three sectors of economy: primary, secondary and tertiary. Then the comparison of these three sectors and the difference between the organized and unorganized sectors. How to classify the economic activities, this also we are going to see. Here you witness different kind of people doing different kind of work. For example, here some brick making is going on, some selling is going on, here some cotton, you can say cropping, etc. Then here is a coolie and newspaper vendor. Everyone has a different idea of development that we have already seen. So everyone is doing some or the other work because they have to earn their livelihood. They have to do certain work. So when it comes to the economic activities, those activities these people were doing, any activity that generates some income, some money, that generates some income is known as economic activities. Any activity that will generate some amount or income or salary, it is an economic activity. For instance, computer engineer, he creates software. He does programming to make money, right? So there are divisions of economic activities, and these divisions are primary sectors, secondary sectors and tertiary sectors. So let me take the primary sector first. Now the cotton is a crop, so it's a natural thing. When you sow the cotton seed, then the crop will come. So it is basically a natural thing. Like if you go to a dairy or say you have a cow, so that cow is natural. You give fodder to the cow and this cow will give you dairy, means milk, and then you can make the milk products like the paneer, like the cheese, like the dahi or curd. Now whatever is coming from directly nature or crop or agriculture, this is known as the primary sector. So primary sector is also called as the agriculture or related sector. So the first, you can say, division of economic activities is primary sector. Primary sectors like the agriculture, like the dairy, like the fishing, forestry, all this comes from the natural thing, from the crops, from the nature, and that is why these are called as primary sectors. Now coming to secondary sectors. Cotton is coming from primary sector. Now cotton will be converted into dhaga or threads, right? And then it will be made in some garment, textile. Who is going to do it? Some manufacturing has to be done. Some industry is there. The industry is going to convert this cotton into some useful material. So this industry is there. That can be industry or it can be done in the house also, you know. So when you have soil, you take a soil and then you make a brick. So soil is coming from what? It is coming from primary sector, that is, it is coming from nature. Then you make a brick or a house or a building. This brick is now made from soil. Textile is made from cotton. So when you make something from the primary, whatever is coming from primary sector, we call them as secondary sector. Secondary sector is related to manufacturing. So if you don't manufacture how can you manufacture textile? You have to have the primary sector content, right? So this is also, that is why if you have, say, sugar cane, you can make sugar only when you have a sugar cane, or you can make gur okay, from molasses, like sugar and gur can only be made from sugar cane. So that is called because there is some manufacturing, say some processing, some ingredients are involved so that the sugar cane can be converted into sugar. That is called the industrial sector. That is why this is called as the secondary sector. Mainly that is, the primary sector was known as agriculture or related sector. The secondary one is called as an industrial sector. So secondary sector also called as industrial sector. Coming to the tertiary sector, the third one, tertiary sector. Now this provides support to other sector. Now this cotton has to go to the industry. Who is going to take it? Some transportation is required. The person who is driving this vehicle, the person who owns this vehicle, they are from the tertiary sectors. That is, if some in some industry, some people are involved, lot of people are involved who are making this cotton to some textile or soil to brick, or say some other sugar cane to say sugar. Now there are so many people involved in an industry. Now in the lunchtime they need food. In the lunchtime they need food. In the evening time they need tea. Who is going to give it to them? Those who are helping them or they are supporting them, they are coming from the tertiary sector. See, this industry is there. Industry needs a bank to finance. That bank is, what is that bank? It is coming from the tertiary sector. So bank is tertiary sector. See, some industry has to be made, textile has to be made, so there has to be some science involved. A person has to be skilled to make a textile. This person has to learn something. Who is going to teach? A person who is going to teach is a teacher. He is coming from education, so he has to educate this guy. So this education is a tertiary sector. So actually this tertiary sector is servicing, say, the primary sector or the secondary sector. That is why we also call this tertiary sector as the service sector. This service sector is very important. See, as I gave example of the teacher, the washerman, the barber, you can't cut your hairs. You have to make hairs, you have to go to barber. Then you can't make your shoes, like cobblers have to there. Lawyers, if you have to make an affidavit, you have to go to a lawyer. Those people who are doing administrative work in this industry, or some accounting work, some auditing work, all these people are coming from service sector. I hope you got the idea. Service sector is so important now. Now there is a very important thing. We actually divided these three sectors. But the important thing is that all these sectors are interdependent. They are not having a very fine boundary. For example, imagine what would happen if farmers refuse to sell sugarcane to a particular sugar mill. The mill has to stop its work. And this is an example of secondary or industrial sector being dependent on the primary sector, that is the sugarcane, right? Imagine what would happen to cotton cultivation if companies decide not to buy from the Indian market and rather to import the cotton from the other countries. So Indian cotton cultivation will become less profitable and the farmers may even go bankrupt. If they cannot quickly switch to the other crop, cotton prices will fall. So here the secondary sector, or you can say the second division of the economy, is very important for the primary sector content to be consumed. If the cotton are not being consumed by the companies or the industries which belong to the secondary sector, the primary sector will fall. This is what we see here. Farmers buy many goods such as tractors, pump set, electricity, pesticide, fertilizers. Just imagine that what would happen if the price of the fertilizers or pump set go up, cost of cultivation of the farmer will rise and their profits will be reduced. So this is evident now that the industry needs the material from the primary sector. It is known. But the primary sector, that is the agriculture sector, also need the content or the equipment or the instrument from the secondary sector, that is the industrial sector. That is, they need tractor, they need pump set, they need pesticide, fertilizers, all they need from the secondary sector. Now, one more example, or one more discussion. People working in industrial and service sector need food. Just imagine what happens if there is a strike by transporters and lorries refuse to take vegetables and milk from rural areas. Food will become scarce in urban areas, whereas farmers will be unable to sell their product. So now if the service sector, that is the third sector of the Indian economy, is not willing to work, or it goes to strike, then what will happen? Primary sector and secondary sector all will be affected. Industry may not work, or the content or the primary sector production will not go to the industry, and those people who are actually working will be they are more dependent on vegetable milk, etc., everything which is coming from the, or which is supported by the third sector, which is the service sector. So all these are interdependent. They are not different. Let us compare the three sectors of the economy. That is, we will compare it using the productivity and the population. Productivity and the population. So as thousands of economic activities, they are going around, you can see everywhere. In all these three sectors, lot of economic activities is going on. So it makes almost impossible to take account of each activity. So there are so many activities which are going on. So what we have to do is, we have to check only the final goods and services. Final goods and services. That is, if you say some 10,000 kgs of wheat is sold at 8 per kg. So if you account for this 10,000 kg, that will not be a good idea to compare. You have to find out the cost of this 10,000 kg. That is, if 1 kg is 8 per kg or 8 rupees per kg, then it is going to be 80,000. So let us have the account or the amount of all the content we have from every sector, and then we compute it. For example, just take an example of one more thing. That is, we have 5,000 coconut. We can't just count the coconut. It is not very good idea to compare the sectors along this. Just take the cost of one coconut, that is 10, just assume that it is 10 rupees per coconut, then the amount goes to 50,000. So take all the coconuts in the Indian subcontinent, in the Indian region. Take all the coconut count, multiply the price, the final amount, that needs to be the idea to compare. You can't compare the numbers. You have to compare the full price, full amount. I hope you got the idea. So this first thing has to be understood, and second thing is that the final product. That is, say a mill grinds the wheat. Suppose that wheat is costing 8 rupees per kg. A wheat is costing 8 rupees per kg. Now this wheat has to be passed through grinding. You cannot use wheat directly like this. To say flour mill. Now flour mill does grinding of this wheat, and now the cost becomes 8 rupees 8 per kg, rupees 10 per kg. So from 8 rupees it has now come to 10 rupees. Now the industry will get the amount, how much? 10 rupees per kg. For 1 kg it will get from the grinding, or you can say flour mill, it will get in 10 rupees. Now the biscuit, this is a biscuit company. Biscuit company is getting for 10 rupees. Now it is adding certain stuff, like it is adding the sugar, it is adding the oil, and now it is converting this wheat into biscuit, actual biscuits. And this biscuit, say 15 per packet, 15 rupees per packet, it is selling rupees 15 per packet. That is, for 4 packet it is selling 1 2 3 4 packets are there, it is selling 60 rupees per kg. So we can say it started with 8, then goes to 10, then it went to 15. So now this is a complete product. So we can't take the price here or here. We have to take the price of the final product, that is the biscuit. We can't have the price in between. This is the second thing. That is, if we want to compare, first we have to take the actual amount of all the content we have, and then we have to take the final price. Biscuits are the final goods, goods that are reaching the customers. Coming to a very important word, which is called the gross domestic product, or GDP. Let me tell you about GDP. It's a very important term here. So now we have seen that we have to compute, or we have to see the final goods or the services. Whenever I'm talking about the goods, there are services also, because tertiary level or division is also very important. So whenever we are coming to goods, we are talking about services also. Now, goods and services, they are produced in all the three sectors which we have seen, and whatever is produced by all these sectors during a particular year, this provides a total production of the sector for that year. This is called the GDP, or gross domestic product of a country. More the GDP, the bigger the economy of the country is. That means you take the production or services of the primary sector, all the production in India, then secondary sector, all the production and goods or services, then all the goods and services if it is there in the tertiary sector. Just add all of them, and this is going to be the GDP. So GDP is gross domestic product, the value of the final goods and services produced in each sector, that is the three sector, primary, secondary, tertiary, during a particular financial year, or you can say in a year, it goes financial only, provides the total production of the sector of that year. So all this combined is the GDP. And this is the most important thing which shows the health of an economy of a country, right? How big the economy is. And right now because the time I'm talking, our GDP should be going 10 to 12, but somehow it is around 5, but it is going to gear up. It was 7 a few months back. So this is the idea I'm giving you, 5% or 7%, 10 to 12 it has to go, so that we make ourselves a Viksit country, or a good country, like rich country, as early as possible. Now, there are historical changes in this sector. How does this sector change? We need to understand that at initial stages of development, when it started, the primary sector is always the most important sector, because every content is coming, every granary, khadyan, everything is coming from the primary sector, right? So it is an important sector for every economy, but the initial stages. Now, when the farming methods innovated, the agriculture began, because now, previously more people were employed there. Now, good farming methods have come, new innovations, new inventions. So the agriculture sector began to produce more food with less people. So people now started, because, people have to find some other job, and there is an agriculture sector, or you can say farming methods and other content has to be made. The industries came up. So people started working in the industry. Some people, they also got into the tertiary sector, that is transportation, etc. Then gradually what happened, the secondary sector became the most important in the economy. First of all, the primary sector was there, then innovation came, agriculture became quite advanced, then people went to industry. When they went to industry, the secondary sector now came into being. It became the most important in economy and providing the employment. Right? Now, various different industry in the secondary sector, they started food processing, equipment making, textile, all the things which can be done in the secondary sector was going on. And now when these things are going on and these things expanded, they need to be supported by bank, good health, education. All these are coming from the services, that is the tertiary sector. So service sector now, the third sector, has become now the most important sectors in terms of total production and started employing more people. So if you see in a developed economy, if you go to rich countries, you'll always see most of the people are involved in the tertiary sector rather than in the primary sector. What is the contribution in GDP of primary and secondary and tertiary sectors in India? Let me show you a graph first. Here, this is 1973, this is 2003, but there is a data available for 2011 also. But this will give you a idea. Previously, this was the primary sector, it has grown up. Secondary sector has actually grown up, but the tertiary sector has many-fold grown up. So this tertiary sector, if you see the increase, if you see the elaboration, it's quite a bit, right? So what we see here is, in the period 1973-1974, the primary sector was the main contributor to the GDP. gross domestic product. But when it came to 2003, and I'm talking about more later, when tertiary sector has actually contributed maximum in the GDP. Now the who is the more involving as perceived by GDP? It is the tertiary sector. Now the question is, why this tertiary sector is going on? But there is one more thing, that this tertiary sector is because all these sectors, they need some support. First, every country, whether it is developing or developed, it needs to have hospital, it needs to have educational institution, post, telegraph, police stations, courts, village, administrative offices, the municipal corporation, defense, transport, banks, insurance companies, they all are required. And these are now the basic services. So in a developing country, the government has to take responsibility of the provision of these services, and these are called as the services. So the factors behind the shift in the contribution in GDP, how this tertiary has actually, primary has shifted to tertiary. The development of agriculture and industry leads to the development of services. Because actually this is primary sector and secondary sector. But when this primary sector and secondary sector enhanced, it emancipated, the development of services like the transport, trade, storage, banking has to be there. There has to be some support. So this is how the contribution of tertiary sector has grown up. And greater the development of the primary and sector, it will be always a greater demand for these services which I just told you, right? So where are the most of the people employed? First, let me tell you one more. This we took two of this. First and second, why the factor is increasing. So two answers I gave. Now the third is the income levels. When people are in first was, let me go to again. First was the agriculture industry. When it increases, the services are required. All these services are required, and the development of primary sector would demand for these kind of services. Now the third is that whenever the income level increases, when the salary or income increases, you would want to go to, say, eating out, tourism, shopping, private hospitals. You want to send your kids to private schools. You need some professional training. All these are provided by whom? Tertiary sector. And finally, that ICT, information and communication technology, it was not there, but now it is all everywhere actually. And this ICT has actually grabbed, or you can say it has spread like anything in terms of the tertiary sector. So this is a kind of a new sector which has come up, right? Taking you to this one, this is the share of sectors. So the tertiary sector is quite high. The primary sector has decreased, and secondary sector almost is equal. Somewhat it has increased. It is the share of these in the GDP. Please understand, share it. So most of the share is from GDP, from the tertiary sector. Now coming to here, share of sectors in the employment. Now here is a problem, that though this tertiary sector is giving a lot to the GDP, the employment is not increasing. Same here, same in the others also. This secondary sector is also not giving that much of employment, and this is a cause, this is a problem. So let me take you that where are the most of the people employed? What is happening with the employment? So what we saw in the previous period, 40% is contributed by the primary sector in GDP. Then secondary sector contributed 12%, and 48% is the contribution from the tertiary sector. Now coming to the employment, because if these sectors are increasing, they are contributing so much to the economy, then they have to provide the employment also, rozgar also. So employment percent during this year we are talking about, 74% are engaged in the primary sector only, 74% are engaged in the agriculture only, while only 15% were involved in tertiary sector, only 15%. And if you come to some the nearby years, the percent of contribution of tertiary sector has increased. It has gone up to 67%. Primary sector just reduced to 12%. So the primary sector continues to be the largest during 2015, 2011, 2012. So the primary sector, or the sector of first sector, that is primary sector, it is just, it is just giving 1/4 to the GDP, but most of the people are employed here only, primary sector, right? And if you see the development of say the secondary and tertiary, mostly the tertiary, the 14 times it has increased in these many years, but it is only providing 5 times the employment. So this is a cause of concern, that though these sectors, and especially the tertiary sector and the secondary sector, they are growing that much, and tertiary sector in particular, but they are not able to provide the employment that is required. So there are certain kinds of employment, disguised employment. So let me just take you an idea that you have, say, a land, and there are 5 people, 1 2 3 4 5 in this say in a household. Now all of these are involved here, everyone is involved here, they are working on this land, but this land is small. Even if you take 2 people, they are able to work, and there will be no difference in the production. There will be no difference in the production. So the labor effort is less. That is, these people can do a lot of work, but still they don't have any work. That is, they have less work, and they are satisfied with their work also. So these 3 people are actually, they don't need to be employed here. This is called the underemployment. That is, there are people in agriculture which are more than necessary. Even if you move these people, production will not be affected, or we can say these 3 guys, these 3 people, workers in agriculture sector, are underemployed. So most of the people are employed, but they are underemployed. Okay, they are putting a lot of labor effort. Now there are people, the situation of underemployment which we saw, there is situation where people are apparently working, but all of them are made to work less to their potential, as you see here also. So the underemployment is hidden in the contrast to someone who does not have a job. That is, a person who is actually not, these all are 5 are forced to work to their, you can say, to less to their working ability. But there are certain people who are actually not having any job. They are unemployed. But this is kind of a disguised unemployment, because they are working, but they are in the disguise. They are not working because they are not working to their full level. Okay. So more people engage in agriculture than the necessary, they are actually required, as I gave you an example. And the kind of underemployment is hidden in contrast to someone who does not have a job and is clearly visible as unemployed. So it is called undisguised unemployment. He himself does not know, the person himself does not know that I am working, but still I am underemployed or not employed, right? So there are so many people who wants to work, they are worker who are working every day, they might not get a job, they might not get the whole salary. So there is a kind of different kind of unemployment, underemployment, or you can say less employment or disguised employment. So this is the first part of our discussion, and we'll take the other one in the next one. We'll keep it short. Till then, thank you so much and take care of yourself.